Hello, peoples, and welcome to a very, very bizarre time in our lives. I just wanted to make a vlog simply because of what has been going on politically in Canada lately. Now, for a lot of my viewers, they're in the United States. They're very happy with their, first African American president. He's going to save the world. He's making a glorious cabinet right now. And just in time for, CNN to officially declare the U.S. in recession, but economically, I'm just going to leave that alone for a while. Politically in Canada, things have been crazy. To give you a bit of a recap, we've had since the early 90s to the early 2000s, we've had a liberal government. And liberal essentially meaning that pretty much center on the spectrum. And we had a prime minister for years and years and years in Canada. You don't have to force someone to stop being prime minister after a certain amount of time. So we had him for years and years and years, and he did some stuff that pissed off a lot of people, essentially. Then when they got a new leader, whose name was Paul Martin, he basically took the flak for a whole bunch of stuff that the previous prime minister did. So when they went to election, the prime minister lost the election to a conservative guy. So this conservative guy, who is Stephen Harper, who is now our prime minister, he was very new. We didn't really know what to expect from him, but he seemed pretty good. I mean, the ads were fine, whatever. So we went to election, and they just kind of badmouthed the Liberals, and they won a minority government. Now, what that essentially means in Canada is that it's kind of different from the US system where it's just simply Democrat or Republican, right? You have several parties that you can vote for in Canada. You have the Conservatives, who are right of center. You have the Liberals, which are pretty much center. And then you have the NDP, New Democrat parties, what they're called. They're left of center. If you're in Quebec, you can vote for the Bloc, which is very left of center. And then we have this new Green Party that's only been around for maybe 10 years now. And we don't really know where they are on the spectrum. But anyways, there's essentially quite a few parties you can vote for. So when we voted in the new conservative guy, because we wanted change and everything like that, he got a minority government, meaning that he had 50% or less of control of the House of Commons, is where political stuff happens in Canada. Anyways, personally, a minority government is a great government, because that means that the party can't really run the country like an iron fist. They have to have, theoretically, permission from at least one other party or two other parties in order to follow through with a bill. So that was what was supposed to happen. So Prime Minister Harper, he got in, he was great, he was actually kind of funny at the beginning, like really charismatic, and things were great, and then all of a sudden, it started to get a little bit weird. Every single bill he started bringing in was a non-confidence vote, meaning that if the other parties did not vote for this bill, they essentially went to an election. It was just like, and nobody wants to go to an election all the time, right? So they were voting in stuff, and as a matter of fact, Stephen Harper passed a bill saying that they were going to have set election periods, meaning that you can't take advantage of, being high in the polls to have an election. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Harper finds out in the polls that he's actually doing pretty well. And he's going to try for majority government. So essentially, he just broke his own bill that he passed to have set elections so he can call an election at an optimum time. At this time, the Liberal government got a new leader because the other guy resigned, and this leader was Stéphane Dion. And I'm just not even going to comment. Like, seriously, just kind of a dud, essentially. And they're poor, by the way, because they have no money. They spent all their money on campaigning, and they have no money right now. So what essentially happened is he calls this election. The Liberals have no money. They have a crappy leader. And the other parties, you don't vote for the Bloc unless you're in Quebec. And they're separatists. They want to free themselves from Canada because they feel that culturally we're suppressing them. So, the Bloc they're kind of, at least you know what they want, right? They want to separate. Anyways, but, there's something that we can't really vote for. Then we have the New Democrat Party, which is the NDP, left of center. And it's, I don't know. I don't think they're going to become government anytime soon. So really, it's just between the Conservatives and the Liberals. So essentially, the Liberals have no money. They have a crappy leader. The Conservative government calls an election for October 2008, which is a fantastic time as we now look back. And so basically, the campaign revolved around how the Liberal leader, Stéphane Dion, was not a good leader, which I don't really think he was. But the thing that really got me really weirded out was that when they had the debates, right, between the leaders, and we have a lot of leaders, right, from all these different parties, and they're in this round table, and all of them ganged up on Stephen Harper. It was just insane. I mean, I was speaking to my family, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen an election where they have been so adamant about, do not elect this guy. Seriously, there is something wrong with him. So nothing happened with the election. I mean, come on, like, we just had an election a couple of years ago in 2006, and nothing has changed. I mean, they got a couple more seats, the Conservatives, but that was about it. So they go back to Parliament, they have a minority government once again, and what happens? Oh, it's October. The economy just crashes, just absolutely garbage. It's still absolutely ridiculous. And so, what's happened is that Stephen Harper, our Prime Minister, came up on TV, said, you know what, economically, Canada's not doing so hot right now. We're going to work together with all these parties, and we're going to make Canada better. And finally, I'm like, yes, this is how a minority government should work. Woohoo! Then, not even like 2 weeks later, he comes up with another non-confidence bill. And this non-confidence vote for this bill essentially is an economic plan, as he puts it, for cutting the funding of parties to essentially save money. But essentially what it is that he wants to cut the funding, and now keep in mind that the Conservatives have the most to lose. I understand that. But he wants to cut the funding to all these other parties, that aren't government right now. And so, let's think about this here for a moment, okay? So, the Bloc Québécois gets 90% of its funding from fundraising and from, the people that donate the money. And they're going to restrict that? 90% of your funding is gone. You're going to be finished. NDP, probably 50% of their funding is gone from that. And the Liberals, well, they might be able to survive with that, but they have no money right now. What Stephen Harper has done is he's created a non-confidence vote to destroy the other parties. Now, I don't know if Stephen Harper is arrogant or whatever, if he thought this would go through, but honestly, only the stupidest of pigs choose their own butchers. So, of course, the other parties are just completely up in arms right now. It's a non-confidence bill, meaning that they have to vote on it sometime, and they can't really reverse it right now. They can't really retract it without him looking like an idiot. Wow, he kind of looks like one anyway, but anyways. So, there's a couple of options. One is, now that we've had this new government for 2 months, they could go back to an election, which we don't want to do. The economy is garbage. We spent enough money, and I mean, even the Conservative MPs, they've campaigned to their eyeballs. They don't want to go to another election. But that is one option. They can go to an election, just non-confidence. We're not going to vote for this, because they're not going to vote for it, right? Another option, too, and my family and I were talking about this even when the October election was happening, is that all the other parties could really conglomerate and become their own coalition. And that hasn't happened in Canada for 91 years. It's been a super long time. And so that's an option too. Now keep in mind that has to be, okayed by the Governor-General, which is essentially the Queen's little pet that she sends over to Canada to make sure that we're following the laws and everything like that. So she has enough on her plate right now. But a week ago, this whole coalition thing was kind of a possibility. Right now, they've already formed their cabinet. They are ready to go. Seriously. So Stephen Harper is kind of crapping a brick right now, and it'll just be super interesting in the next little while. Like I can't I mean the Bloc and the NDP and like the Liberals kind of working together, like that's just sort of like some stew that could be really interesting. But honestly, they really want this Stephen Harper guy out. And I can understand. I mean, he's running the country like a majority government, and he's not majority. So, I don't know. It's just really, really interesting. I'm pretty thrilled to find out what happens. So, anyways, so that's what's going on politically in Canada. It'll be interesting to see what happens from here on in. But yeah, wow. First time in 91 years? I don't know. But anyways, talk to you guys later and have a great day.